Hi, my name is Daisy Bolger, and I am the founder of RBG Empowers. These interviews are part of the sustainability aspect of my Gold Award, which feature women who are powerful and successful in their careers and use their voice to make change. I hope these videos inspire you to do good with your strong, powerful voice. Enjoy! Thank you so much for coming here and being interviewed for us. Can you tell us your name and kind of describe what your profession is and what interests you had that kind of got you there from, when you were a kid or when you were in college to now?
My name is Kate Bolger. My full name is Catherine Mary Bolger, but you can call me Kate. And I'm a First Amendment lawyer. So I represent newspapers and book publishers and magazines and online publications when they get sued for the content they print. So not for like commercial disputes or anything like that, literally what the words on the page mean, which is a pretty cool job if you're going to be a lawyer. I'm not necessarily recommending being a lawyer, but it is still like above the lawyer jobs, the best lawyer job. And I guess I think sometimes when I think about my job, I think I kind of lucked into my job. But I will also tell you that when I was 15 years old, the Supreme Court decided an opinion called Hazelwood versus Coomer School District. And if you haven't read it, you should, because it will make you very angry. The decision in Hazelwood decided that high school students didn't have the same free speech rights as adults. And I was 15 when it came down, so I was a freshman in high school, and I was furious about it. And it had a dissent written by this guy named Justice Brennan, who's my favorite justice. And he says at the end of it that this is essentially not how you teach people to have rights in a republic, by taking them away. And the last line of it is kind of in words or substance: the children expected a civics lesson. This is not the lesson they expected. And I was like, this is wrong. And I was really angry about it. And that day I got a copy of the Constitution in class. I still have it. I carry it in my wallet. I had to write in the 26th Amendment. So I guess technically Hazelwood is when I probably started to get all excited. It's still the law, by the way, and you should still be mad about it.
How prevalent, like in your career, but also in general, have you felt that like gender discrimination or just feeling less able to speak up about things in your career and others? How prominent do you still think that is for women in male-dominated spaces?
I wish I could tell you I think it's gone. I don't. I think there's a generational shift, so I'll be curious to see what happens in like 10 years. But I still encounter it, so I'll give you two examples of how I discover it. One is the very first deposition I took, which is like a long time ago now, because I've been a lawyer for a while. The opposing counsel was actually just beating me up and being a jerk. And it was just doing it because I was a woman, and it was sort of crystal clear to me. And my mentor came in to, oversee the deposition. He was a man, an older man. And he pulled me out of the deposition and he said to me, that guy's being a jerk to you because you're a woman and because you're young. And I'm not going to stop him. I'm not going to intervene because the rest of your career, you'll feel like I have to save you. You're on your own, kid. We'll go to the judge and make sure we make it clear. So I finished the deposition and I came home and I was really upset. Then I went to the judge and the judge reordered the deposition taken because of his behavior, which was like a little bit of a Pyrrhic victory. But it was really important to me in that moment to realize that it still existed in the world. And it was super important that my mentor named it, who said yes, this is happening to you, because it was important to have someone see it and change it. And I think that's a good thing that's changing, is that as women get more senior, women are much more comfortable talking about this is happening, and just naming it itself moves it out of the world that Ginsburg was in, right? Ginsburg was in a world where no one was even naming it. We're naming it. I'm not telling you we eradicated it. And then the other one, and this one's a really hard one, is that sometimes judges don't like women. And so the kind of law I practice, which is the First Amendment, is inherently kind of questioning to the court, because your First Amendment rights trump whatever that court can do. So in some senses, when you stand up and talk and say you're violating my client's free speech rights, you're actually telling the court, I'm the superior right here, because that's the way our Constitution is set up. So it's inherently sort of charging the barricades anyway. And I find that sometimes that being a woman is a problem and can be really weird. So for example, I have this case right now where there's 4 counsel. I'm the only woman. And the judge calls everybody else Mr. and he calls me Kate every single time. the thing is, I'm winning, so I don't know what to do, right? So I'm like, you shouldn't be calling me Kate, but on the other hand, you're gonna rule for me, so I shouldn't say anything. So I can't say it's gone. I think it's being named. I think that's good, but it's definitely a problem.
And have you, other than those scenarios, have you faced any like larger doubt or adversity within your field due to your gender? Have you been denied certain positions or in any way? And if you have, like, how have you overcome this?
So no, I don't think I've been denied any positions. In fact, I'm pretty sure I haven't. But I do think that I've been not heard. I think very common, and this is the thing a lot of women will talk about, is going to a meeting and saying something, and then 5 minutes later having a man say exactly the same thing, and then have that person be the person who stands for that principle. And that happens all the time. It drives me crazy. And I've actually gotten to the point where when someone says something I've already said, I will say out loud, I said that 5 minutes ago, because it feels like you have to say something about it. One time I was in a meeting, and it was a meeting of like the super smart in-house counsel who do what I do. So like the general counsel of the New York Times and the Washington Post and all these other people. And I was there by proxy. Someone else couldn't go, and I was their kind of designated representative. So I was like a little bit, one of these things is not like the other anyway. And I said something, everyone ignored it. 10 minutes later, someone said it, and it's like, oh my God, that's brilliant. And the general counsel of the New York Times actually leaned forward and said, I just want you guys to know, Kate said that 5 minutes ago. And so, sorry, my family is fighting downstairs. So fundamentally, I think that I have happened, the being unheard, and one time I had a partner who I was fighting with actually say to me, I'm sorry, Kate, sometimes I can't hear you because I can't hear voices in the upper register. And I was like, I'm sorry, are you actually telling me that you're physically incapable of hearing the female voice? And I like burst out laughing. So I think sometimes you have a hard time being heard, but I can't say I feel like I've been denied anything. I do feel I haven't been heard sometimes. So anyway, as I was saying, I think naming is really important. And I also think being consciously interacting with the world in a way that's traditionally female or associated with traditional female things is actually very important. So when I came back from maternity leave, I articulated being sad. And when other women went out to have babies and came back and were pumping, right? I would say, oh, I know the schedule, right? You pump at, and I would talk about the time. Or I became very vocal about there were no locks on our office doors. So people were like jamming their doors. And so I became very vocal about put a darn lock on the door. Like it's not a hard thing to put a lock on the door. And I feel like once you start talking about, I miss my kids, or I'm leaving early because it's Halloween and I have to take a kid out trick-or-treating. Once people start talking about it, I think that really helps. And the other thing that's been helpful to me is that as I've gotten older, I've collected kind of women of my age group and had them be kind of consciously supportive of younger people. And I think that just sort of the sisterhood, for lack of a better term, which historically women were pretty bad at. And when the first lawyers, like the Justice Ginsburgs of the world came in, they sort of were ramming at barricades, like just constantly ramming at barricades. And they sort of built down a lot of walls and weren't necessarily always capable of, it didn't have the luxury of pulling someone else up with them, right? They were too busy knocking down a wall to pull down the person behind them. And I think our generation of women, which is younger, obviously, has the ability to pull more than one person up. And I think that's been a really big change, is that if you name the things that you're doing and you bring the women with you, that's been a big change, I think. And I think it's good. So that's what I think we should do. I think we need to start making sure we're taking the group, not just ourselves.
What do you think are the most important qualities of a woman who can make a difference with her strong voice? And they don't have to literally be qualities, but what have you seen in women that has helped them, or that has been a standout feature of their personality, of their leadership as a woman who uses their voice?
So two things, one of which I think is really elusive and one of which I think is not. Confidence is really key. And I think maintaining confidence in young women is the hardest thing in the world to do. Keeping you guys confident in your teens is the biggest and best thing that your folks and we can do for you guys. And just sending you out into the world with some awareness of how great you are, which girls just lose. They just lose. Even when they have it. Even when at 5-year-old, you're confident as hell, you lose it by 15. That's the biggest thing. And we just have to figure out a way to do a better job on that. Much harder with my daughter than my son, right? It's just a much harder world. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is, and I hate to say this because it's very unsexy and it isn't going to solve anything, but I'm more prepared and I work harder than any other male lawyer I know. And the most successful woman litigator I know is a woman named Liz. She's 62 years old and she still works like 12-hour days to be ready to do what she does. Now, I'm not going to do that when I'm 62 years old, I hope, right? And like that there's a time when it has to stop, and that is actually something she likes to do, which I'm not at. But I do think the level of being prepared the importance of being prepared cannot be overstated. So I guess those are my two things. One is confidence, and the other is that when I walk into a room, I may be shorter. I'm always shorter. I may be the only woman. I'm always the only woman. My voice may be too high to hear, right? I know that I'm much more prepared than everybody else in the room. And that is in itself an asset. So I guess confidence, which is elusive, and preparedness, which is the one thing I think you can actually control.
What is your, who do you consider your female role model that has inspired you to make a difference in any way, and why?
So this is gonna sound really hokey because of course you know her, but my mom. So mom is like a fascinating study in being a woman, because of course mom got married, it was born in 1932, right? Didn't get married until she was 36 years old, and then married my dad. And they had in some ways kind of a traditional relationship, right? Dad was the primary breadwinner, mom cooked dinner, mom was responsible for us. But all the while mom was sort of seemingly towing the line on this stuff, mom was kind of breathing fire in my ears. So she would tell me when I was a kid that I was a feminist. I had no idea what a feminist was, but I knew I was a feminist because mom and I were feminists, right? And then she would tell me, she made me promise that I would never take my husband's name. She just made me promise I would never pluck my eyebrows, by the way. She remembers doing neither of those things because at the time she was just kind of mad at dad. And so she would pull me aside and tell me these things. But she also had very much an attitude of why wouldn't you be the person that could do that? I don't know. She would always be when I would come home and be well, I don't think I can be that person. She'd be well, I don't understand why not. And mom, and Pop was a pain in the neck, right? And he would say, you're being difficult, or why are you being so difficult? And mom would always say, she's not difficult. She's complicated. Have a little faith in her. And I feel like mom's act of faith in me, all the while she was kind of breathing fire in my ear, it was really important. And as I got older, and the more you know about grandma, grandma's story is pretty amazing. I mean, she had a pretty tough childhood, right? And then she, at 1950, got a scholarship to college to study microbiology. What? And then had to drop out to support her little sister, right? It's an amazing story. And so I kind of feel we have to find, not every woman goes to Columbia, right? Not every woman it's the thing that drives me crazy about the whole lean in movement. My mom leaned in as far as she possibly could, right? She got a scholarship to study microbiology at Douglas College in 1950, having been literally abandoned by her father and living in a basement with her 5 siblings, right? That's what happened to mom. She leaned in as far as she could, but it wasn't enough because she didn't have enough money. And I think we kind of have to find what is a real strength in women is this idea that you live your life, but you think big thoughts and you push it down to the next generation. So that is a hokey way of saying my mom.
What advice do you have for young women who want to be strong leaders toward change?
I would go back to being prepared. It's going to be hard work, and you should build that into your plans. I do think the relationships with women are key. I mean, I can't tell you how much I value and think they are valuable, not only because having friends who are women is just more fun and more interesting and makes life better, but also because a community of people who kind of have your back and work together is pretty big. The other thing is, and I have a bit of a hard time with this one, is not thinking you're the only one who can do something, because lots of people can, and keeping your sort of mind open to the idea that yours is not the only voice, which I think, so having been the most prepared and having been a person who's a woman in a world that has a lot of men, I think you often fall back on, well, mine is the only way. And I think that's the wrong thing to do. I think that's where the moms of the world come in. That there's a different kind of way of doing things and changing things. So that's my things are be prepared, which is really the one I'm going to tell you for everything. And listen, build a community of women because women matter. And then the other is kind of listen, which I think is very hard.
Yeah, I like that kind of balance is very important, because you can go way too far one way and you kind of have to find a middle ground where you're flexible to anything.
Yeah, I'm going to criticize Justice Ginsburg right now to give you an example. So I realize that this is inconsistent with the badge, so I appreciate that. I'm sorry about that, but here's my thing. So she wrote the opinion that integrated VMI, let women into VMI, right? And that was a huge deal. And it was 100% right. The opinion is down to the letter right on the law. She made a mistake, I think. And the mistake was, so I had graduated from the University of Virginia at the time. VMI is obviously in Virginia. And at the time, Virginia was trying to figure out who it was. It was very still like bound by the Confederacy, but also like deeply progressive in some ways. And it was trying to figure out who it was. And the decision in VMI is sort of like, this is the rule now. Women are the same as men. You're just going to have to get rid of all your old institutions. And it was kind of a mistake. And it was a mistake that Justice Scalia, who I hate, kind of picked up on it in his dissent and said, she thinks she can just, with a wave of the arm, throw away 200 years of history, and you can't do that. There are traditions in Virginia that matter to Virginians. I actually kind of think Scalia, while not right on the law, was right on the rhetoric, being that it wasn't, she wrote the story like a person from New York City who believed in equality and thought it was the only way. And what she should have written the decision was, look, you can have your traditions, you can have your balls and your cotillions, but you have to recognize that your traditions originally excluded Black people entirely and women, right? And when you think about your traditions, keep your traditions, buddy, but your good old boys need to include women and Black people, right? And I feel like that's kind of what I mean. Like, I feel like if you can find a way to not come at things like you're the only way, I think that's the way to move the needle.
Well, thank you so much for,
of course.
Helping me out and being part of this project. Obviously, if for people watching, she is my project advisor. So you've done so much for this project, and that I just appreciate it so much because
it's been really fun. I've loved it.
Helped. And if you want to hear Kate talk more about Ruth Bader Ginsburg as well, you can go to the curriculum tab on this website and you can look at the videos there as well. So thank you so much. And that's it. That's the whole interview.
All right. Bye.